sideboard and mixed himself a stiff whiskey and soda. He asked me to join him, but I refused. "Won't you sit down again?" I shook my head. "You came to my place at Quong once," he began abruptly. "I was damn drunk, I admit it. But something happened. Do you remember?" I nodded. "This is what I want to ask you. Did you or did you not see that shadow?" I stared him hard in the face. "I remember the episode to which you refer," I replied. "I certainly saw a shadow." "But what sort of shadow?" To me it seemed an indefinite, shapeless thing, as though caused by someone moving behind the curtain. "It didn't look to you like the shadow of a hand?" "It might have been, but I could not be positive." Adderley groaned. "Knox," he said, "money is a curse. It has been a curse to me. If I have had my fun, God knows I have paid for it." "Your idea of fun is probably a peculiar one," I said dryly. Let me confess that I was only suffering the man's society because of an intense curiosity which now possessed me on learning that the Lady of Quong was still in Adderley's company. Whether my repugnance for his society would have enabled me to remain any longer, I cannot say, but as if fate had deliberately planned that I should become a witness of the concluding phases of this secret drama, we were now interrupted a second time, and again in a dramatic fashion. Adderley's nondescript valet came in with letters and a rather large brown paper parcel, sealed and fastened with great care. As the man went out, "Surely this is from Singapore," muttered Adderley, taking up the parcel. He seemed to become temporarily oblivious of my presence, and his face grew even more haggard as he studied the writing upon the wrapper. With unsteady fingers he untied it, and I lingered, watching curiously. Presently, out from the wrappings he took a very beautiful casket of ebony and ivory, cunningly carved and standing upon 4 claw-like ivory legs. "What the devil's this?" he muttered. He opened the box, which was lined with sandalwood, and thereupon started back with a great cry, recoiling from the casket as though it had contained an adder. My former sentiments forgotten, I stepped forward and peered into the interior. Then I in turn recoiled. In the box lay a shriveled yellow hand, with long tapering and well-manicured nails, neatly severed at the wrist. The nail of the index finger was enclosed in a tiny, delicately fashioned case of gold, upon which were engraved a number of Chinese characters. Adderley sank down again upon the settee. "My God," he whispered, "his hand! His hand! He has sent me his hand!" He began laughing, whereupon, since I could see that the man was practically hysterical because of his mysterious fears— "Stop that," I said sharply. "Pull yourself together, Adderley. What the deuce is the matter with you?" "Take it away," he moaned. "Take it away! Take the accursed thing away!" "I admit it is an unpleasant gift to send anybody," I said, "but probably you know more about it than I do." "Take it away," he repeated. "Take it away, for God's sake, take it away, Knox!" He was quite beyond reason, and therefore— "Very well," I said, and wrapped the casket in the brown paper in which it had come. "What do you want me to do with it?" "Throw it in the river," he answered. "Burn it. Do anything you like with it, but take it out of my sight." 3. The Gold-Cased Nail. As I descended to the street, the liftman regarded me in a curious and rather significant way. Finally, just as I was about to step out into the hall— "Excuse me, sir," he said, having evidently decided that I was a fit person to converse with, "but are you a friend of Mr. Adderley's?" "Why do you ask?" Well, sir, I hope you will excuse me, but at times I have thought the gentleman was just a little bit queer-like." "You mean insane?" I asked sharply. "Well, sir, I don't know, but he is always asking me if I can see shadows and things in the lift, and sometimes when he comes in late of a night he absolutely gives me the cold shivers, he does." I lingered, the box under my arm, reluctant to obtain confidences from a servant, but at the same time keenly interested. Thus encouraged, "Then there's that lady friend of his who is always coming here," the man continued. "She's haunted by shadows, too." He paused, watching me narrowly. "There's nothing better in this world than a clean conscience, sir," he concluded. Having returned to my room at the hotel, I set down the mysterious parcel, surveying it with much disfavour. That it contained the hand of the Mandarin Quong I could not doubt, the hand which had been amputated by Dr. Matheson. Its appearance in that dramatic fashion confirmed Matheson's idea that the Mandarin's injury had been received at the hands of Adderley. What did all this portend, unless that the Mandarin Quong was dead? And if he were dead, why was Adderley more afraid of him dead than he had been of him living? I thought of the haunting shadow. I thought of the night at Quong. And I thought of Dr. Matheson's words when he had told us of his discovery of the Chinaman lying in the road that night outside Singapore. I felt strangely disinclined to touch the relic, and it was only after some moments' hesitation that I undid the wrappings and raised the lid of the casket. Dusk was very near, and I had not yet lighted the lamps. Therefore, at first, I doubted the evidence of my senses. But having lighted up and peered long and anxiously into the sandal-wood lining of the casket, I could doubt no longer. The casket was empty. It was like a conjuring trick. That the hand had been in the box when I had taken it up from Adderley's table, I could have sworn before any jury. When and by whom it had been removed was a puzzle beyond my powers of unravelling. I stepped toward the telephone. Then I remembered that Paul Harley was out of London. Vaguely wondering if Adderley had played me a particularly gruesome practical joke, I put the box on a sideboard and again contemplated the telephone doubtfully for a moment. It was in my mind to ring him up. Finally, taking all things into consideration, I determined that I would have nothing further to do with the man's unsavoury and mysterious affairs. It was in vain, however, that I endeavoured to dismiss the matter from my mind, and throughout the evening, which I spent at a theatre with some American friends, I found myself constantly thinking of Adderley and the ivory casket, of the Mandarin of Johor Bahru, and of the mystery of the shrivelled yellow hand. I had been back in my room about half an hour, I suppose, and it was long past midnight, but I was startled by a ringing of my telephone bell. I took up the receiver, and— "Knox! Knox!" came a choking cry. "Yes? Who is speaking?" "It is I, Adderley. For God's sake, come round to my place at once." His words were scarcely intelligible. Undoubtedly he was in the grip of intense emotion. "What do you mean? What is the matter?" "It is here, Knox. It is here. It is knocking on the door. Knocking! Knocking!" "Have you been drinking?" I said sternly. "Where is your man?" "The cur has bolted. He bolted the moment he heard that damned knocking. I am all alone. I have no one else to appeal to." There came a choking sound, then— "My God, Knox, it is getting in. I can see. The shadow on the blind." Convinced that Adderley's secret fears had driven him mad, I nevertheless felt called upon to attend to his urgent call, and, without a moment's delay, I hurried around to St. James's Street. The liftman was not on duty, the lower hall was in darkness, but I raced up the stairs and found to my astonishment that Adderley's door was wide open. "Adderley!" I cried. "Adderley!" There was no reply, and without further ceremony